Hi guys, welcome to J Talk, a faith-based podcast featuring Jesus and Janae. I'm your host Janae, and here I talk about my life and how Jesus has and is currently helping me through it. One important thing, here we listen and we do not judge, but if you choose to judge, that is between you and the big G-O-D. So welcome back to my channel. I have not dropped a video in a very long time, and I have to be transparent, and honestly, it's really because, I was supposed to do this video at least, but I don't know, like when God gives you a vision and the vision doesn't play out the way that you would have hoped it would, then it kind of causes hope deferred and it makes you not want to do it anymore. But recently God has put it on my heart to make this video, even though I was supposed to make it. So here I am. And then when it comes to J Talk, he has been, telling me to start posting again. So when it comes to J Talk, a few things are changing. I'm going to, before I really rarely posted a video. I would post one maybe once a month, once every few weeks, and then I would stop. But now I have come up with a schedule, so I'm going to be posting every Tuesday and every Friday. On Tuesday, it's going to be one of two segments. It's either going to be Let's Talk About It Tuesday, which is where I basically talk about a biblical topic and how it pertains to my life, but also how it can pertain to your life or anyone's life. And for example, next week on Tuesday, we're going to be talking about vanity. Okay, so that's one segment. Another segment is the one like today, which is going to be posted once a month, and it's going to be Testimony Tuesday. So today is Testimony Tuesday, where I talk to you about how God supernaturally moved me from Connecticut to Dallas, Texas. On Fridays, though, I'm going to be starting another segment called And Finally She Chose Herself. I don't know, maybe somebody's seen a video, but I did post And Finally She Chose Herself before, but I posted one video a day. It was just off the charts because God gave me idea. And again, when God gives you an idea, it does not mean that it's meant for that particular time. And I think that when God gives us ideas, it's important for us to really take it to him and ask him what he wants us to do with it, because again, just because he tells you to do something doesn't mean it's for you to do in that moment. So And Finally She Chose Herself Friday is going to be about, I'm going to be posting videos about social, emotional health and wellness and learning. And so, for example, this Friday's video is going to be about romanticizing our lives without being delusional. So the videos will fall under a series of categories, whether it's self-love, attachment styles, it could be self-control, it could be learning to be alone, it could be faith, understanding that everything happens for a reason. There's a plethora of topics, but that is going to be Friday's video. And obviously every single video is going to be spoken through a biblical lens, because yes, I can speak about it, but I can also lead you to an idea of where it is in the Bible, depending on what we're talking about. And so, now we're going to get into the video. One thing about my podcast is that I don't just jump into what I'm talking about. I do play 2 card games, and then I do something called Quote of the Day. If you would like to skip that, this is where you can skip to. This is where the testimony starts. But if you are down to listen or watch the whole video, then thank you, and let's begin. So the first card game that I'm going to be starting with is called Let's Get Deep. It's split into 3 different kinds of cards: an icebreaker card, a deep card, and a deeper card. I pre-picked them. I did not look at them. But basically, I play this game so that you guys can get a little bit of intel about me, what I like, what I think about certain stuff, whatever. Because this podcast is J Talk, so Jesus and Janae. Yes, we talk about the Bible, but we also talk about Janae. So the first card is the icebreaker card, and it says, "What's your favorite song of all time?" My favorite song of all time is definitely Naked by LMA. And I would say that because I feel as though the song really embodies who I am, honestly. Every single time I hear it, I'm like, yes, she wrote the song for me. So that's my answer. The deep card says, "Have you ever played a prank on someone, and what was the prank?" Actually, yes, I have. I've played many pranks on people. When me and my siblings were kids. When me and my siblings were kids, I don't know, that sounds so wrong in my head. But when me and my siblings were smaller, when we were kids, we used to play pranks on each other. And so one of the pranks that me and my little sister played on my older sister, so the age ranges is basically my older sister is a year older than me, so she's 27. I turned 26 in August. I'm getting so old, OMG. But my younger siblings, they're twins, a boy and a girl, and they're 4 years younger than me, so they're turning 22 this year. Now, when we were kids, me and my little sister were playing a prank on my older sister. She was coming home from school. My mom had made cupcakes, so me and my sister were like, let's play a prank. I think it's so funny because I think I still have a video of the prank in my phone, like on my Snapchat. But we decided to put hot sauce inside the middle of her cupcake. And so when she got home, we were like, oh, like, look, Naya, like, mom made cupcakes, like, here's yours. And she ate the cupcake and she was so mad. Like, she was so mad. But yeah, that's one of the pranks I played. I played a lot of pranks. And then the deeper card says, what is the biggest deal breaker in a significant other? One thing about Janae is that I have a few deal breakers, I'm not going to lie. But the biggest would probably be someone who is not a man of his word. So like if a man says like, oh, on Monday we're going to go here, and then on Monday we don't go, or like he says, I'm going to get you this, but he doesn't get it for me. Like, I would rather a man just be quiet and not say anything than for him to tell me he's going to do something and not do it, because that just shows that you're not a man of your word. And if you're not a man of your word, then I cannot trust you. So that's what I would say my biggest deal breaker is, but I do have a few more. So, but with that being said, we're going to move on to the next game. So the next game is called Talking Points, the Christian version, and it's split into 4 different colored cards, and each of the cards hold different meanings. So we're just going to go in order. The red card is Bible truths, and the question says, what is sanctification? Sanctification is the process that we go through to become more like Christ. So getting rid of the sins that we once carried, the temptations that we once carried. Well, you're always going to have temptations, but getting rid of the sin that you once carried and changing your mind and your heart and your behavior to become more like Christ. The answer says that it is God's making sinners think and behave like himself. The green card says, or it's the world around us, that's the topic, and the card reads, to what extent should religious education be included in school curriculums? Honestly, I don't believe that religion should be taught in schools, and this is coming from someone who is obviously Christian, and I believe that we are supposed to teach each other about Jesus, especially children in today's day, because kids are easily influenced in general, but this, like in this generation, it's crazy. Like, they're seeing the craziest stuff. There's streamers now. There's OnlyFans. There's so much, right? So kids are easily influenced. And so I believe that we should teach the youth. We should teach everyone about Jesus, but especially the youth. But if we talk about school, right? If I was a English teacher, for example, and I wanted to teach my children about Jesus, then that means that the teacher next door who's Muslim also gets to teach the children about Allah and their religion. And I just would not personally want my children to learn about other religions, because I believe that Jesus Christ is the one true God. But we have to think about inclusivity. And so if I was able to teach children about Jesus, then that means that other people could teach children about whatever religion that they want to teach children about, including Satanism, which I think might be a religion. I'm not sure, but like, wouldn't want my child to learn about that. So I don't think it should be taught in school as a curriculum. I believe that children should be able to open up Bible club or whatever they want, but teachers, I don't believe they should teach religion, because then that means that all teachers will be able to teach whatever religion they desire. Now, I do believe that if a child was to ask me, hey, miss, if you seem happy all the time. How are you so happy? Well, personally, I am happy because I find my joy in Jesus. And even when I'm upset, I can pray to Jesus and he can give me a peace that surpasses my understanding. And that's how I find joy. I'm not forcing you to be a Christian, but that is personally how I find joy. I think that that's personally or perfectly acceptable and appropriate. So I think that it should be taught if a student saw my shirt that said I love Jesus and they're like, hey miss, like, who is Jesus? I feel as though I should be able to answer the question. Jesus is, I feel as though the question should be able to be answered. I think it's all in if the child wants to know. I believe that I should be able to answer honestly without, I guess, pushing my religion onto them. So yeah, that's my answer. The next question or the next topic of conversation is personal beliefs. And the question reads, what do you think it means to be a Christian? I think to be a Christian, first of all, you have to believe in Jesus to be God. But that's not like, end all be all, because even demons, believe in God. And they tremble at Jesus. So, that's not like this big thing. I think believing is the first step. The next step is to, rid off your sins, to be sanctified, to become more like Jesus. I think that's also the meaning of Christianity, to become more like Jesus, not just through your actions, but also through your heart and through the way that you think and behave. So, and then the last step would obviously to be a disciple and to go out, spread the gospel, to make other followers of Jesus Christ. So I think it's believing in Jesus. I think that it is becoming more like Jesus. And I think that it is to follow Jesus, to make other followers of Jesus. I think that is what it means to be a Christian. And the last question or topic is faith journey. And it says, what would you like to be remembered for after you die? Personally, I want to be remembered for someone who was very emotionally, I would say, sensitive, someone who loved like Jesus. I want to be remembered for someone who loves like Jesus. Like, I try my hardest not to cast judgment on people. I know the Bible says that we can judge righteously. Everyone loves to say, well, the Bible says judge righteously. True. But I also think that there's power in not judging and understanding that, like, when I was a sinner and even like lukewarm, Jesus was still so loving and so patient with me. And of course, he disciplined me. And I think it's important to hold each other accountable, but not judging. I think that it's something special when you can see where a person is and help them from where they are because you used to be in that place. So I really do try not to be judgmental. I really try to be as loving as possible because that's how Jesus is currently. That's how he is currently with me. And that's how he always has been with me. That's who I know him as. I know Jesus as love. So that's what I try to be. But also I want to be remembered as someone who loves Jesus. So yeah. Now for my favorite segment of the day, I have quote of the day on the way. And quote of the day is where I provide a quote and a Bible verse based off of the topic at hand, and I give a takeaway message based off of the two. With that being said, the quote comes from Martin Luther King, and it says, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. And the Bible verse comes from Joshua 3:15-16, and it says, now the Jordan is at flood stage all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, while the water flowing down to the sea that is the Dead Sea, was completely cut off, so the people crossed over opposite Jericho. My takeaway message is that if God is calling you into something, you need to be obedient and take the first step of faith. You do not need to see that things are going to be okay. Sometimes God needs to test your faith. Abraham offered up Isaac not knowing that God was going to save him. I moved, you're going to hear in my testimony, I moved not knowing if things were going to end up okay. Sometimes God needs you to just take the first step. You do not need to see any light at the end of the tunnel. You might just see the darkest tunnel ever, and God might tell you to walk through it, and you're like, God, I'm scared. But if God gives you instruction, know that he is with you. And if he is with you, then you will be okay. So again, if God is calling you to do something, you need to walk into it. If you have to do it scared, if you have to do it with a shaky voice, if you have to do it with shaky hands, if you have to do it uncertain, you need to just do it though. Okay. So God is not going to call you into something that is not going to be okay, that you will not have the victory over. Okay. He just needs to see and know that you have faith in him, because with man, it is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Every single thing is possible with God. Even if it seems so impossible in your mind, it is possible with God. Ephesians 3:20 says that God can do exceedingly abundantly more than you think or imagine. So our minds can only think and imagine so many things. God can do immeasurably more than that. Okay, so trust God and have faith. So I'm not gonna lie, I did not know where to start in this testimony, but we're just gonna take it to 2024. All right, so in 2023, I wanted to move. 2024 is like the process that I was really looking into apartments. And so 2024, around maybe May or April, God started to talk to me about Dallas, Texas. And so the big question that people ask is, well, how do you know that God was calling you to move to Dallas, Texas? Well, I began to see license plates of Texas everywhere. Mind you, I lived in Connecticut. So this testimony is how God miraculously moved me from Connecticut to Dallas, Texas in just 1 week. Now, so I lived in Connecticut, and I was seeing Texas plates everywhere. I was seeing a bunch of Dallas Cowboy like signs on people's cars and stores, whatever. I would be on YouTube and I would see videos of like, God told me to move to Dallas, how God moved me to Dallas with no money, how God moved me to Dallas with no job. And I'm just like, why are you showing me this? Like, why am I seeing this? Right. And so from that point on, it's like I knew that God was calling me to Dallas. And I knew that because God shows me things multiple times. And that's how I know that it's him. Obviously, I saw him out on it. I fasted many times and the signs just continued. So now we're in June, and in June, I was at the club or bar club. I don't know. It was kind of like a mixture for my friend's birthday, 2024 in June. Right. So, and this is how I know 2024 is the year that God started to really convict me on a lot of stuff. He started to convict me about smoking. I was already like basically not smoking, but I would still dabble in it. Drinking, I was still getting drunk. So he was really convicting me about a lot of stuff. And so, baby, this is how I knew it was time for me to get out of the world. I'm over here at the table and I'm falling asleep, right? So my friends are walking around, they're mingling. I'm like, Janae, you cannot fall asleep at this table. Like, you gotta stand up. So I stood up and some guy came up to me and he's like, hey, like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, like, what do you mean? He's like, you look really mad. I'm like, oh, I'm not mad. I'm just really tired. He was like, oh, like, don't worry, like, I'm not a weirdo or anything, I'm not from here. I said, oh, really, where are you from? And he said, and he had an accent, so like as soon as he said I'm not from here, I heard his accent, I knew he was gonna say Texas. And he said Texas, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I knew it. And he's like why'd you get so like happy, like you weren't just feeling like this just a minute ago? And I'm like, I believe that God wants me to move to Dallas. And he's like, oh, I'm from Dallas. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, mind you, this is not like, this just shows like God's permissive will and his perfect will. Obviously it wasn't in his perfect will for me to be in this bar right now, but God works so mysteriously that like even when you're in the wrong place, he will show you his presence in that place. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow, that's so cool. Anyway, I worked at a hospital around this time, and the children, like, one child came up to me and said, like, she didn't come up to me, but we were talking, and she told me that her horse's name was Dallas. Another girl told me that her dog's name was Dallas. So like, I was just seeing Dallas everywhere. So in August, I decided to, July, I would say that I like hired. It wasn't really hiring because it was free, but I got an apartment locator and she was just looking at apartments for me. August is my birthday. I decided to go to Dallas a few days before my birthday to tour apartments. I liked one of the apartments. I came back home and I applied. I was denied. I did seek God about it, but the way I sought God out then is not the same way I seek God today. And so I was seeing like angel numbers and I thought that was my confirmation. I don't believe in angel numbers anymore. I don't believe that's of God. I do believe that you can see numbers and God can speak to you through numbers, but I believe in Strong's Concordance. So, but anyway, obviously God did not confirm that apartment. I got denied. So around this time, I also quit the hospital job because things were just going really bad and I knew that God was calling me out of that job. But then, so when I stopped working there, I thought I was moving in August of 2024. Didn't happen that way. So I have already quit the hospital and God began to like put on my heart to make TikTok videos, right? So I started making TikTok videos and the videos I started making were quote of the day. Like, it's so cool how God works everything together. So I started making quote of the day videos, but at this point I was tired of doing DoorDash because that's what I started to do to make some money. And I'm like, God, Christmas is coming up. It was like October at this time, the end of October. I'm like, Christmas is coming up. I want to buy presents. So I'm going to work at Amazon. Mind you, I'm applying to so many different jobs that I'm obviously overly qualified for and nobody's hiring me. So I'm like, God, I'm sorry, but I got to go to Amazon. So I went to Amazon, which was really humbling for me because I'm like, I have my degree. No one's hiring me. This is just so sucky, like, right? But again, perfect will, permissive will. I don't believe it was in his perfect will for me to work at Amazon, but when I was at Amazon, I was spreading the word of Jesus. And also like I was meeting so many different people that like I knew God sent in my path. So it was really rewarding also to be there, but obviously I'm like, God, this is not for me. I gotta get out of here. So February of 2025, my car stops working, and I believe that is when God was telling me, you need to not go back. I prayed about it. I believe I fasted, and I'm like, okay, God, I'm not going to go back. That was my first act of true faith because I'm like, well, how am I supposed to pay the bills if I don't have a job? Now, the entire 2025, I did not have a job, but 2025 was the year of pruning and stripping off. The end of August, September, I broke up with my boyfriend in 2024. So now we're in 2025, no job, no man, and God is now calling me away from my middle school friends, the friends that I had since middle school. And obviously it was really hard for me because, you know, I just broke up with my boyfriend. I don't got no friends now. It's like super hard. And it wasn't on my friends. It was really because of my own self. Like the Bible says to flee from temptation, and they were drinking and partying. And I knew that wasn't a temptation for me. I knew that drinking was a temptation for me. I knew that I could not control my alcohol. So I had to distance myself. Again, not on them, because we were all on different walks, but I was holding myself accountable because I knew I couldn't control myself. So God was calling me to separate myself. I did. Also, I didn't have any money. It was just a really tough time. I don't think I should have completely isolated myself, but I did. Again, yeah, it was just a hard year. I was really being pruned. I was in the worst wilderness season. Like mentally, I was so exhausted. And so I know there's a couple people or a lot of people who may be in a wilderness season. You don't know what God is doing. God is telling you to do this and you're like really losing faith. I really want to like share my testimony. Obviously, I'm in a place of promise, and I would pray to God, like, God, when do I get to tell my testimony from a place of promise rather than a place of, you know, pruning and a place of pain? And now that I'm in a place of promise, I want to speak to the people who might be in a place of pain, because you see these people getting the apartments and you're like, God, well, where is mine? When I was all 2025, I did not want to go back there after breaking up with my boyfriend. Like, I really wrestled with God. I'm like, God, well, he doesn't cheat on me and he has his own room. I can just stay in his room. Like, I don't want to go back. And God was basically saying, like, you're going to settle because he doesn't cheat on you. That's the bare minimum. You're going to settle because he has a bed. You will have a roof over your head. And so I I had to do it. 2025, I slept on the couch the entire year. There was mold on my living room ceiling. Obviously, everybody was going through the living room. That's where I was like living, basically, essentially. It was just so tough. And I'm not gonna lie, I was backsliding a lot. I was lukewarm, but God was stripping it off of me. But like, that's how it was. I did go back to my friends sometimes. I did get drunk sometimes. This is just honesty. I did backslide in a lot of areas. I'm not going to lie. God was merciful and graceful, but like, he started to show me that I was idolizing some things. And the thing about it is God will warn you, but like, if you show God like this is what you want, then he's going to give it to you, and you do not want that. So at some point, I'm like, also, he was giving me different ideas. He gave me the idea to do a devotional, which is basically done. Also, he gave me the idea for And Finally She Chose Herself, which is also going to be a mentorship. But like, when it was happening, it's just like God is giving me all these ideas. I feel like I'm not doing enough, and I still feel as though like he promised me this new life, and it's like, this is what I'm at right now. Like, why am I here? Like, God, when are you going to do it? One thing I want to say is please trust the process, because 2025, the beginning of 2025, I wasn't ready for the things that God had promised me. If I'm being honest, like, who I am today is different than who I was June of 2025. And so who I was in June of 2025 is different than who I was in June of 2024. And you have to just understand and trust that God knows when you are ready. And I came to the point where I was tired of going through the same cycles over and over again. And so I literally said, like, I cannot teach And Finally She Chose Herself if I'm not choosing myself. So God, I give you everything. And so I really did. I focused, and every single time I wanted to go back, I told God, I was so honest with God. God, I do want to backslide. God, I do want to do this, but please take this desire away. And that's sometimes what you have to do. You just have to pray to God and say, God, I can't do this alone. I need you, and he will help you. So yeah, 2025 was a bunch of pruning. It was a bunch of stripping off. And honestly, I am so grateful. I do not believe I would have seen so much growth if I wasn't in an isolation season. I was isolated from everybody and everything. I had no money. I could not go outside. I went for walks, but like, I couldn't do anything for real. I couldn't experience what I wanted to experience, but it humbled me. First of all, it made me appreciate the things that I had, and it helped me to build things that I don't think I would have really focused or sat down for if I was working a full-time job, or if I was doing this or doing that. So I'm grateful for how everything happened. I understand that people might want to know how God provided for me. So like, basically, my mom passed away in 2021. And so the landlords knew that, and our rent was only $960. There was 4 of us, so we split it 4 ways. I obviously couldn't pay my portion because I didn't have a job, but they were lenient and okay as long as someone was paying the rent. And so like, if someone paid, like if 2 of my siblings paid their portion, they were like, okay, like, because we always caught up. And then during this year, I also want to say that my car got repoed. But something I want to say is that the most unfortunate situations that occur in our life are for the best, even when they don't seem like that in that moment. So for example, me not wanting to move back to this house or this duplex or apartment or whatever seemed terrible, right? Because I was sleeping on the couch. There was mold literally on top of me. It was terrible. I was crying most of 2025. I cried. I'm not gonna lie. I cried to get out of it. I cried for change. I cried. I just cried. I cried. It felt like God didn't hear me, but I was still being faithful. I was still doing Bible study. I was still fasting every single month. I was still doing my part. I was still praising. I was still believing, even though I felt so hopeless. And I just really want to speak to the people who feel so hopeless. Like, I understand that people live their lives, and a lot of people aren't vulnerable with where they are in life, and like, that's cool, but I am, because I liked watching videos of people speaking about their testimony so that I could see that it was also possible for me. Because if God did it for them, then why wouldn't he do it for me? And if God did it for me, why wouldn't he do it for you? So yeah, I did not want to be there, but the fact that I didn't pay rent and they were lenient because my siblings were paying rent means that this unfortunate situation that I was in was actually the most fortunate situation that I could have found myself in. And then Also, like, living with my siblings. Now we all live apart, so like that was the last time that me and my siblings were all going to be together. We lived together our whole lives, so like being like in different states and stuff is like kind of hard, but it's like, I appreciate 2025 for what it was in its totality, do the good and do the bad. Also, my car got repoed, seemed terrible in the moment, and when I got I got pulled over. My car was not registered. I got a court date. They gave me the court date. The court date came in the mail, I think around October of 2025. The court date was set for April 7th of 2026. I thought it was because God was giving me time to re-register my car, but that was not the case. And so now we're going to jump into the miracle of God moving me here to Texas in just 1 week. So now we're going to fast forward to March of 2026. Like I said, I do an Esther fast every single month. I have for the last like year and some change. So basically it was March. I was in the middle of an Esther fast and God told me that I was moving at the end of March, early April. So I knew that meant early April because again, I had a court date on April 7th. Now, April 7th comes, like I said, the most unfortunate situations are actually the most fortunate. My car got repoed and obviously I did not get a job all 2025. So I could not pay for the ticket. I couldn't pay for my car re-registry, and so I get to court and she asked me if I got my car re-registered. I told her no, my car was repoed. She said, do you have any proof? I showed her a letter of them saying that if I paid this amount I could get the car back, and she said, it's fine, I'm going to just let you go and I'm going to wipe this clean. Case closed. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like thank you so much. I leave. I thank God because like obviously he worked it out in a way that I did not imagine him to. So now we jump into how God moved me here in just a week. So April 7th, like I said, was my court date. April 7th, I applied to this apartment. So one thing about this apartment is the next question that people will ask, well, how do you know that God was calling you to this particular apartment? So let's just say that this apartment is called Oak Tree Apartments, right? Well, when I worked at Amazon and I would pack stuff up, I would see this box. I don't know what it was, but it would have an oak tree on it and it would say Oak Tree, right? So I'm like, okay. And mind you, this is the beginning of 2025. So I'm like, okay, this is when God starts to speak to me about this particular apartment. And mind you, this is after the apartment locator had viewed this particular apartment building, and she sent me a video. And so she actually sent me a video of B11, which is where I'm at right now. So basically, after she viewed it, I really did love the apartment. And so when I was working, like I said, I would see the oak tree and the boxes, whatever. Fast forward, I lived at the same place for 14 years. Like I said, I lived with my siblings, my mom, obviously, when she was alive. So like I lived there for 14 years. And so I never seen this, but when I would start to drive, I would see Oak Tree Apartments. Mind you, 2 minutes away from my house. I down the street like every day. Never seen it. Oak Tree Apartments. Furthermore, Oak Tree Liquor Store. Across the street, Oak Tree Apartments. More Oak Tree Apartments. It's just like, what the heck? Like, where did this come from? And why am I now seeing this, right? So God was really making it prominent to me. Another thing, when I got off the exit to my house one day, like I said, lived here most of my life, there was an oak tree to the right of me. Like my house was right off an exit. Right off the exit was an oak tree. Never seen it before, but I'm like, what the heck? Like I have never seen this before, and I've lived here my whole life, but God was making it prominent. Then I would drive and see a bunch of oak trees I've never seen before. Obviously it's not a real oak tree. I don't even know what an oak tree looks like, but yeah, you get the gist. So then fast forward, God would give me dreams. So I had one dream in the beginning of 2025, and in the dream, I have it somewhere on my phone, but in the dream, basically I was working in a grocery store and I was stocking the shelves, and I put a loaf of bread on the shelf, and the bread had oak on it, right? So we know that bread means manna, it means provision. So when I was putting it on the shelf, it was basically God telling me like he is going to provide this apartment for me. This was the beginning of 2025. I didn't mention that I did apply to this apartment complex. I applied to a 1-bedroom. I don't remember when. It must have been the beginning of 2025. It could have been after I had that dream, I'm not gonna lie. And I got denied. So I remember telling my sister like, oh yeah, like I applied, I got denied. She's like, maybe it's not the right time, maybe it's not the apartment. But because I knew that God said this apartment. Furthermore, July of 2025, I had another dream, and basically I was at a house and I went to the backyard, and the backyard had an oak tree that looks so ethereal. Like when I tell you, it looks so beautiful and magical. I knew God was saying again, like, I'm still moving you here. So that's how I knew it was this particular place. The exact apartment, I knew that my sister was moving in with me, and in my journal, this is why I vouch for journals. I'm actually creating journals, but this is why I vouch for journals, because you can tell what you wrote down and the timestamp. I have it, the journal entry somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I asked God, like, is it B11? Fast forward, I applied on April 7th to B11. Now, at first I was praying from a place of like desperation, and God told me like, it's already yours, so stop being desperate and thank me. And so I changed my plea and my cry out of desperation to like victory. Jesus, thank you for approving me. Thank you for all you've done. And again, God will use every single thing that seems like the most minimal. Okay, so I told you that, you know, we were paying rent at the place that we lived at, but I was not paying. However, my siblings, I was the most responsible. So my siblings were sending me their money and I would get the money order. So all the money was coming to my Cash App. When it was time to apply, they asked for bank statements. I didn't have bank statements. They accepted Cash App statements. And I was so thankful that my siblings for the past year had been sending me their rent money. So they're just seeing, my siblings don't put like what for. So they're just seeing money come in to my Cash App, but not seeing like where it's from or what it is. Like they're just seeing money come to me. And so I'm so grateful. Also, I do have to be like a little transparent that like I did have an investment account with some money in it, so that also helped. But again, apartments don't really care about investments, they care about liquid cash, and that's something I didn't have. I had no money, I had no job, and so I just prayed from a place of victory. Like, God, I know that this seems impossible. Mind you, my sister did work, but she worked at a daycare. So, and this rent is pretty expensive, I'm not going to lie. So, like, neither of us were qualified, but we just prayed. I fasted again. Okay. I fasted the first 3 days of April, I believe. I fasted in the end of March. I fasted again in April. I was not playing. I was getting out of there. And so, again, we applied on April 7th. On April 8th, we were approved by the grace of God. We did not tell anyone that we were applying. And that's something that I will tell you to not do. Don't tell anyone that you're applying until you get accepted, because people can speak word curses against what God says. So, for example, my grandpa is a man of faith. And so he would literally be considered like wise counsel. But when I was like talking to him about it, at first he seemed really like happy and like, okay, like if you got approved, then it really was God. But then when I got here, things were not going smoothly, and he was basically making me question if God told me to move here, because he was like, God is a man of order, this don't sound like God. And so people will talk badly about what God says. Like, another thing, my uncle was basically like, if I knew that you guys were moving to Dallas, I would have told you not to. Like, Dallas, like, it's so dangerous. Like, people will speak negatively about what God is telling you to do, but not purposely. They're not trying to be evil. They love you, but like, again, what man understands is not the same as godly wisdom. So again, just be quiet. It's just best to just be quiet. Then moving forward, I would say that we had 2 days to tell people. I barely had any friends at this point, so I really just told my aunt, and I told my grandpa, and I told my earthly dad. Like, I didn't really have much people to tell. And then we were supposed to leave on Friday. So now we're going to get into the miracle. Okay, so the miracle was getting accepted, but then there's a bigger miracle. There's the miracle of how we're going to get there, right? So like I said, my car was repoed, so I don't have a car. My sister had a car, but she got in a car accident again. This was all a part of God's plan. Like, you don't understand why things are happening in the moment, but God has a plan, and he's not trying to be malicious, but he's just trying to show you that you need to have faith, because anything is possible with him. Matthew 19:26 says, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Okay. So it was for a reason that my car got repoed. It was for a reason that her car got taken, because God wanted to do something so supernatural that this video would be able to talk about or testify to. And so my sister prayed for a car to get us from Connecticut to Dallas, Texas. God provided. Did he provide in the way that we wanted him to? Not even close. So we drove from Connecticut to Dallas, Texas in a 2002 Ford Taurus. Okay. And one thing about this Ford Taurus is that it had a starter problem. The starter did not work. Sometimes when you start it, it would start in the first 5 minutes. Sometimes it started right away. Sometimes it took about 20 minutes. And so it's a little nerve wracking when it's taking a long time, right? So fast forward to Thursday night. Thursday night, my sister goes, she's saying her goodbyes. She goes to someone's house. It's nighttime. The car is not starting. She tries for an hour. She comes back home. I cannot sleep Thursday night because we're supposed to leave Friday the 10th. I cannot sleep on the 9th into the 10th. I'm praying. God, is this still what you want? I could barely sleep. The 10th, I wake up and I'm in my Bible heavy because I'm like, it's the morning of, the car wasn't starting. I don't know. She Ubers back to the person's house. She gets in the car because it has started. They left the car on running for the 30 minutes that it took for her to get there. She drives back. I'm in my word. I say, I believe that God still wants us to go. We pack the car and we go. We don't go. We go to get an oil change. We get the oil change. We turn off the car. The car is not starting again. This is the morning of. It is April 10th. We're supposed to leave. The car isn't starting. Okay. So the oil change man is like, it's a bad starter. We're like, we know actually. So he starts to bang on the starter because he's like, if you bang on the starter, the car will start. And so all the men are getting a bunch of tools and they're banging on the starter. It's not starting. So embarrassing. So after a while, mind you, my sister knew a guy next to her getting an oil change. More embarrassing for her because she was driving. Listen, but all the men push us out and they're trying to get the car to start out there, still not starting. So they're like, not much we can do. So me and my sister are trying to get the car to start, and we try for a good 30 minutes. And after it finally starts, we drive off. All the men are just waving us away. Yeah, this is so embarrassing. So then at this point, we're calling people. Again, I don't have any money. My sister got paid a little bit from her job. So there's a little bit of money. There's enough to get us the starter. So we're calling people. I don't know why I'm saying earthly dad, but he said basically that both his mechanics are not answering. They're not available. My sister calls her friend. Her friend is like, my mechanic, both of them are not available. I call my ex-boyfriend because he works on cars. He's not answering. I knew he was sleeping, but obviously this is a part of God's plan. So we're like, we can't just sit here because we drove to a place to buy a starter. We're like, we can't just sit here. No one can fix this. So let's just go to the gas station. We go to the gas station. I'm praying to God. I'm like, I do not know if you want me to move or you don't want me to go, because I do not want to go. Because if the car is not starting in Connecticut, the car is not going to start on the road. And do you think I want to experience this? I don't. So I don't really want to go. And as soon as I was done praying, my earthly dad called me and said, I think that you guys should just go. I knew that God was calling me to go, so now it was time to hit the road. And this is where the story just begins, honestly. Now it's time to drive, right? And so everything is going smooth, and then we get to New Jersey. New Jersey is only 3 hours away from Connecticut, 4 hours. The car overheats. Great, right? So we park the car, and we're at a McDonald's, and the car is just overheating. And I call my ex-boyfriend. He's like, you need some coolant. So we drive to get coolant when the car cools down, and then we get the coolant. He teaches me how to put coolant in the car. I'm becoming handyman. I'm just a girl, really doing manly duties here. So I put the coolant in the car, and now we're just chilling for the car to just get cooler. And then we go back to McDonald's, and at this point we're leaving the car on because after we put the coolant in, the car was not starting. right? So this is just great. Mind you, I am speaking from a place of promised land, but when I was in it, I wanted to cry. The thing about Janae is that I don't cry. I don't know why I just spoke in third person. I don't cry in front of people. Like, I never have. I don't like it. I don't like to feel vulnerable. I hate crying in front of people. Like, I barely even cried at my own mother's funeral. Like, I just don't like crying in front of people. So I was not going to cry in front of my little sister. But I wanted to just be in this room by myself so I could just cry because I was just so fed up. And so I just want to put that out there because it's easy to look at someone who has the thing that you want and you still feel really hopeless. And this is coming from someone who was in that position. So understand that in it, I wanted nothing more but to be out of it. And this brings me to the book in the Bible of Joshua 3, where God is calling the Israelites to cross over into the promised land. They're supposed to cross the Jordan River. Let me tell you about it because this situation mirrors it perfectly. So sometimes God will call you to step out on something. Like I said in quote of the day, God will call you to step out in faith on something before you see that it's possible for you to survive or that things are going to be okay. When it comes to Joshua 3, there was priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant, which was basically God visibly to the people. They were supposed to go 3,000 feet in front of the Israelites so that the Israelites could keep their eyes on God while they were crossing the Jordan River. Because if they were looking at the river, it would look impossible and they would say, don't want to do that. But that's why they were supposed to keep their eyes on God. The priests were called to step out onto the Jordan River. The Jordan River was at flood stage. It wasn't trickling water. It was at flood stage. As we can imagine that, again, this is what the situation looked like. God is telling me to drive my car to a different state when the starter is bad and now it's overheating and he wants me to keep going. Don't want to do that. But he will call you to step out in faith to see if you trust him. So it says that as soon as the priest stepped out on the waters went to the whole different other side and millions of people are able to cross over with their belongings. And so this is exactly what I went through. So I called my ex-boyfriend. Basically, he's telling me that I'm not going to be able to make it back to Connecticut or back. I'm definitely not going to be able to make it to Texas, but he doesn't know if I'm going to be if I'm able to make it back to Connecticut. But he tells me to turn around. I really thought about it. I'm not going to lie. Me and my sister sat in a McDonald's parking lot. We were looking up flight tickets. We were looking up junking cars. Like, nothing was working for us because we really wanted to sell the car because we're just like, we have to get to Dallas, right? But anyway, we keep driving. Fast forward, we're in Maryland and the car overheats again. This time it's nighttime. We're supposed to be out of Maryland by nighttime. Maryland is only like 5-6 hours away from Connecticut. We're in Maryland, I think, and maybe like 7-8. But regardless, we're pretty close and we're in Maryland. So, and it's nighttime. So the car overheats again, and this time it's very, very smoky. So the first time it just overheated. This time there's heck of smoke. And so I'm like, God, yeah, I don't know. My ex-boyfriend is like, it's not going to blow up, but like, you should turn around still. Didn't listen. Pray to God. Keep going. So we kept going. By the grace of God, we made it to Dallas, Texas the next day on April 11th. And honestly, I wanted to turn around, but at that point, it's like we have come too far. And if God has brought us this far, he's not bringing us this far for us to turn around. So we get to Dallas on April 11th. One thing about it was my check was supposed to come to Dallas so I could move in April 11th. When we got here, the check was not here. Super down about that. We got a hotel. God provided through people this entire trip. People helped us get gas, like family, friends, whatever. And then when I got to Dallas, he provided through my grandfather and somebody else. Again, this is where my grandfather said, like, I don't know if it is from God. I don't know if this is from God. Made me really question, because it's just like, is this from you? Because this is not going the way I thought it would go. I thought this would be a smooth process, but it was something other than. And so we were in the hotel April 11th. Now, by the grace of God, though, the next day, so April 11th, the next day, April 12th, I was baptized. And honestly, one of the best days of my life. I'm so grateful that I was baptized, because that's the whole point of me wanting to even come to Dallas at the moment that I wanted to come. I wanted to come in time to be baptized. So God knew that my court date had to be April 7th because April 12th, I was going to be baptized. Like, he's so good. Fast forward to the following Saturday, though. The following Saturday, me and my sister drive the car with the bad starter. Throughout the week, it was barely starting, right? But again, God was providing manna. He was providing. We were still like not in the promised land yet. We didn't make it to the apartment, but we crossed over the Jordan. So God was still providing manna daily through people anyway. So we were in the hotel actually for a week and some days. Again, not what I thought was going to happen. I found out that the check never actually was sent to Texas. And so we had to send the check to Connecticut, and then my sister had to send it to Texas. And so, yeah, we were just, anyway, the following Saturday, I'm questioning, God, I've been in this hotel for this amount of time. I do not know if this is from you. So we drive the car to the dollar store. The car works fine. We get back to the car is not starting. We try for an hour, the car does not start, so we have to call an Uber. When we get the Uber, we drive to McDonald's. I'm so over at this point. I think this was actually the Saturday that we got there, actually. This was actually April 11th. I'm lying. This was April 11th, after we have drove all this way, and now we are finally to a hotel. We go to the dollar store for some things, and this is actually April 11th. And so we get the Uber and we go to McDonald's, and the time is running out. So I text my sister. I'm like, just ask him to please, just stay. So he decides to stay because I said I'll tip him. Anyway, so we get into the car, or I get back in the car after getting our food, and I'm just so fed up. I promise you. And I don't usually talk to Uber drivers, but God was just pressing on my heart to ask him. So I said to him, are you from here? Because actually, no, he made some really crazy turn. So I'm like, he gotta be from here, because the people in Dallas, they drive so crazy. So I'm like, you're from here? He's like, no, I'm from New York. And I'm like, we're from Connecticut. He's like, oh, really? Blah, blah, blah. And he tells me that he drove from New York to here, but in the middle of driving here, his car had car problems, and he had to stop at his aunt's house in a different state, and he had to get a new car. And so now that he's here, everything is going well. And so it really gave me hope, because we went through the exact same thing. And so God really does place people and just things in your life at the right time. And so when I was questioning if God, this is really where you want me to be, because my grandpa had just made me question. I just went through this whole thing. My check is not here. I'm staying in a hotel. My car's not starting. I'm frustrated. I'm so mad. When I tell you, I was so mad at God. I was so confused. I was so mad. So I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, look at the apartment I'm in. No, it took me so much to get here, but God really is faithful. So that gave me hope. The next morning we had to go to church because I needed to be baptized, and we are in the car and we're trying to start it. It's not starting. Oh, no. Before we get to the car, we order an Uber from the hotel to the car, and the driver's name is Jesus. So the day prior, I had this encounter with this man who went through the exact same thing as us from a city that was near ours, or a state that was near ours. And so now the driver's name is Jesus, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Jesus, this is you. Then Jesus cancels, or Jesus, whatever, he cancels right before that he was supposed to get there, and a lady comes, and I'm like, what happened to Jesus? But we get in the car, we get with the lady, we drive to the car, she sees the license plate, and she's like, you guys are from Connecticut? We're like, yes. She said, I am from Connecticut. I lived here all my life. I just moved here X amount of years ago, and I love it. Again, God was confirming, yes, this is from me. And so grateful. Fast forward, we move in April 22nd, 1st, I don't remember, but also the car wasn't starting when we were trying to get to church, but the moment the Uber was 5 minutes away, the car started. So we were able to drive to church. I got baptized. It wasn't really starting when we were trying to leave. Ends up starting. We see the apartment. We like the apartment. We can't move into the apartment, but we end up moving in again the following week, April 20 something. I don't remember, but again, this is how I knew it was God. The apartment, we kept pushing back the date because we kept asking if the check was there. The check was never there. We told you that. After we found out, we knew the check was never going to be there, but it was going to come to a UPS store. So, and then we found out the day was going to come, but we also needed to cash the check. And so like they just kept pushing the date back for us. And the day that we were going to move in, or the day we moved in, she ended up messaging us saying like, if you guys don't move in today, we have to cancel the agreement and we have to give the apartment to someone else. And I was so, like, at that moment, I knew that we were moving in that day because we cashed our checks. But like in that moment, I felt so grateful that they even kept pushing it back, because I looked it up and apartments don't have to push it back, not one time, but they kept pushing it back for a week. And so I knew it was only through the grace of God. And yeah, that really is the testimony. And yeah, honestly, I'm super grateful that I have made it from Dallas. Again, I think my soul needed it. I go to a church that I really, really like. The pastor I really like. I was actually watching this like particular church since November of 2025. God highlighted it to me. So the fact that I was able to get baptized, again, I tried to be baptized before at this church, but it wasn't my time to move. So, but now, obviously I was baptized and I really like the church, and I know that this place is a place that God has called me to. I'm not really sure why yet, but I know he called me here. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that things are just so great. My mental health has not been the best in the last month, really, because it's like now I'm in the promised land and I just feel like things are supposed to be different. But it's like God is calling me to trust him again, because I don't have a job. Mind you, I've applied to about 1 billion jobs. Like I've applied to the most, like, again, super qualified, mind you, for these jobs I'm applying for, and not getting hired anywhere. But God has literally been giving me dreams and just telling me like, I'm going to do it. Like through him, he's going to do it. I don't have to do a thing. And so reminds me of the Bible chapter. I don't remember, 2 Chronicles 20, I believe 20 or 22, where Jehoshaphat had to was scared because people wanted to battle him, but God told him like, this battle is not yours. So they praised God, and while they were praising, God was turning their enemies against each other. And when Jehoshaphat got to the battleground, he saw that everybody was dead, and there was so much articles of value that it was too much to carry away. And so not only did God fight the battle for him, but he got their riches. And so I just have faith that God is going to do it. I do not know how, but again, I'm trying to keep my faith. But yeah, this is me being faithful and sharing my testimony with you guys. And yeah, I really do hope that it helped at least one person. Again, it was really hard to be in the situation, but now that I'm out of it, I am super grateful. And yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed. And with that, I say, I pray everyone watching has a blessed rest of their day. And in Jesus' name, I pray, amen.